This is the Pencil King Show. Today we are speaking with Catherine Orer. Did I do it? Did I get it?
Yeah.
And I was contacted sort of out of the blue, and I love that people reach out and they want to be featured on the podcast. If you're listening and you think that you should be on this podcast, please do reach out, because I'm always looking for interesting stories, people doing interesting things. And so in my research, I realized that Catherine and I are on kind of a similar path, trying to help artists connect the dots and figure out the business side of things, which is where I spend a lot of my time these days. And so welcome to the show, Catherine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
And so to kick things off, I think just give us the 1 to 2 minute overview of who you help and how you help them.
Okay, so I'm a business and PR strategist for artists. I have massive, extensive experience working on the art market, but also as a PR and marketing professional in the corporate sector, NGO sector, and the art market. And today I'm the founder, well, it's been a few years, but as we're speaking, I'm the founder of the Artist Entrepreneur. And what we do is that we help artists to develop their entrepreneurial strategy to build businesses. And I'm not going to say sell the art, because I feel that selling the art is like the output, but really it's about like building a business, thinking about what you want to do with your art, what's your vision long term, and then implementing it to get the results that you want. So that's really how we've been helping artists from all over the world. Very lucky to have, I was counting recently, I think it's 14 countries that we support artists, and artists of all walks of life. They've been, either they have a MFA or they're self-taught, right? And they do visual arts mainly, but it can be photography, drawing, painting, sculpture. So we're very, very lucky to be learning and working with amazing artists from everywhere.
Awesome. And what I especially love in talking with people who are in your position is you get to see so many artists, and you get to see, like, because after a while you start to see the same questions, the same problems. And so this advice really, there is universal advice. And I mean, not everyone is going to have the same problem, but it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe like 5 different buckets that we fall into. And if you can just figure out which bucket you're in, like where you're stuck, and then find the advice that goes with that problem, then maybe that's all that's missing to getting to the next step. So I'm going to start off with what is one of the biggest mindset hurdles that you see us artists getting stuck with, that you just see it time and time again? It's almost boring how often you see it. Like to us who are going through the problems, it's not boring. It's like life and death. But you've seen it so many times that you are just like, oh yeah, that one again. Okay. Is there one that you can pin down?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you said that, Mitch, is I'd like to take it 2 steps back. And now I know that some people who are listening follow me and they're like, oh no, not Catherine with her 2 steps back again. But really, the biggest problem I see with mindset is they don't realize that it's the mindset that's
wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of keeping them from getting to that next level, because they're looking at other artists, especially these days with Instagram, that can be such a powerful tool, but also, you know, you get into that comparison and you're like, how come this artist it's working out for him or her? Why isn't it working out for me? And really, usually it's not necessarily the quality of the work. And yes, they're further along, so maybe their marketing is more advanced because they have more means than you do. But really what got them there is really taking a good look at how they're showing up in their business and really seeing it as a business. Because the transition from hobby to business, it's not just accepting money for the work, right? It's all about setting yourself up as a business and showing up every day like you would for any other type of business. And that mindset is maybe a bigger challenge. People don't see that what's coming the way that that it should. So I think the mindset is probably, you said it right, it's the first thing.
So I want to unpack this a little bit, because I think it's so profound. And I just want to retell one of the stories that I told on the podcast, where about 18 months or so ago, I had this idea that if I could just take my brain and transplant in, like, take whoever you want, like someone, like, let's say Mark Cuban, because it's someone that people know from Shark Tank or whatever. So if I could put Mark Cuban's brain inside my head, I would just get completely different Mark Cuban-esque results. And so then I thought, well, okay, so it's not about like how hard I'm working or how smart I am necessarily. It's just that I need to have different thoughts to get different results. And so that's when I started to challenge. Whenever would sit down to do something, I would just ask, like, is this old thinking or is this the right thing to do? And often I would just start doing the opposite of what whatever I would naturally want to do. If it's like, oh, I should write a blog post. It's like, okay, what's the opposite of that? And then I would have to take a pause and think and start doing these opposite things, because it, like, for me, that's how I'm trying to evolve my mindset. And how are you helping people do this, or is it something similar, or what do you see?
But yeah, I love it, because it's like you're asking yourself, like, what would Mark Cuban do right now? Would he like spend the next 3 hours writing a blog post? Like, would that be the best use of his energy, of his time? Probably not, right? So, and that's really like when artists start comparing themselves, how come this artist is doing this and I'm not able? Then I'm like, well, try to see further, like, how is this person showing up, right? What identity, like, what do you need to change in your mindset, but also in your identity, right? To really show up the way that artist is showing up. Like, and one of the biggest hurdles, I would say, that's kind of keeping artists is from growing is there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of, what other people will think, or what if it doesn't work? And so that's keeping the artist from moving along and taking chances and taking certain risks, because every successful artist and business owner that you will meet, they've taken risks, and sometimes they lose some, sometimes they win some, but they all have that common denominator that they take risks. And the other thing is trusting yourself enough to invest time, invest energy, but also money to grow what it is that you want to grow. Because if you're not, when people tell me like, oh, but I can't really invest, I don't, like, I ask them like, who is it that you're not trusting here? Right? Because if you're so confident that it's going to work out for you, you shouldn't be worried that you're investing to grow, because you're going to get a ROI, a return on your investment. And then that's when we start realizing that, oh yeah, okay, I don't trust myself that much. I'm the only one that's in my own way, that's keeping me from getting the results that I want. Because like you said, I just continue in that same pattern again and again and again, instead of shifting. Because it's easy to look at other artists and just see what we want to see, right? When all the information is there. But I'm just going to do this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick and choose, and I'm not really going to take that risk, take that leap for the next step.
And I'm glad you said that about taking a leap, because I've often felt that when things were easy for me, it's because I just went all in. Like, I used to work in video games, and I knew from when I was a kid that that's what I was going to do, and it just happened very easy and automatic. It was like, and I think this is one thing that I'm different from a lot of people, and so I was trying to get them to that same point where I was at when I was a kid, and had this realization that it's inevitable. Like, just like people, I feel like it's just like the inevitability that you will drive a car, that you will get married, that you will have a family, like these things that you just know them, you don't doubt them, that if you want them, you can have them. And I felt like, well, for me, being a video game artist, it's inevitable. It's just going to happen. It's just a matter of time. But what are some of the things that you find people, like, these roadblocks that they're putting in front of them to not leap in? Or do they need to? Actually, that's the question I want to ask. Do you need to leap in, or can you kind of dabble with this? Because just yesterday I was looking on YouTube, looking at this artist, and I was just seeing how consistently she was posting these videos, and I know how long videos take to produce, and I was like, wow, she's doing this full time. There's no way she is not doing this full time. She's hired or has a friend who's doing video work for her. So that's another investment that she had to make, or that someone is making in her, or something. It takes a lot of effort. She's all in. Are do you see people reaching their goals or getting to where they want to without being all in? And this is it's hard,
But when you mean by all in, do you mean like quitting a day job and just doing this as their full-time gig? Or do you mean like is it possible to have a part-time job and do this? Or
Yeah, that's good because I've had guests, and that's one of the common
Mhm.
themes of like burn the boats, just get rid of everything. So it's sink or swim, and you'll quickly find in life that usually you swim. You just the things
Mhm.
start to align, and you figure it out much quicker if you're just like, nope, I'm going to be an artist in 6 months. I'm quitting my job. I've got the right support. These people are going to get me to where I want to go. I'm not sure if I recommend that path because I don't want people to listen to this and do crazy things in their life, but
Yeah.
it is one way. And so I'm wondering what you see with people, because I feel like when you go all in, it's pretty much guaranteed. But when you don't go all in, then what does that look like?
Well, but you just touched a point that's super important. You said going all in, I'm quitting my job. I have the support team. I have the plan. I know what I'm going to do. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Do it. And I think that's basically what's sometimes missing. So I think that if you're doing this part time, you're going to you can get ahead, but at a certain point, you'll have to make that leap. But we're all different. We all have different aversion to risk. So we're all different when we're ready to make that leap and how much do we need. And it also depends, right? If you're in your early 20s, you rent an apartment as opposed to if you have kids, like it's all different. So I won't say you need to do that. Like I heard a gallery owner at a conference recently say, well, no, you need to go all in. You need to figure it out and you need to go all in. Otherwise, nobody's going to take you seriously. And I'm like, wow, that's like a big statement. And it's not necessarily okay for everyone, but also like, when do you go all in? So I've helped clients go from having a full-time job to moving to a part-time job to them being full-time artists. And it's really working out for them because we've determined from the get-go, like, what is it? And I've done it myself. I was working at corporate and I had a great job. I hated it. So I quit and I went to study art history at Christie's. And then I started working in the art market and now I have my business. But I didn't quit my job at corporate sector and then think, okay, now what am I going to do with my life? Like I took 8 months while I was working at corporate to put money aside, set up a budget, get the support community that I needed around me, make a plan, a strategic plan for what is it that I was going to do after, what is it that I needed to get the success that I want. So that's pretty much what I do with my clients that come to me and say, okay, like, can you help me? I want to quit my job in 6 months, 8 months, a year. And then we look at, okay, well, what is it that you need because what you need, what I need, what my, brother-in-law needs to feel good about quitting their job, it's all different, right? So we need to figure out what it is that you need. And then we set up a plan and we make sure that you execute it fully so that you can reach the goals that you want. Don't think there's a one, size fits all strategy for that. It really needs to be working out for you. What I don't like is when people quit their job, don't have a plan, then they call me 6, 8 months down the road. They have no more money. No, they're depleted of all resources. They're completely discouraged. And they're like, I haven't done anything out of my 8 months. And now I think I need to go get a job. And that for me, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, go get a job, get yourself back on track, and then you'll do it again. But learn from that experience that clearly doing this all alone wasn't the best option for you. Like, you needed that support system and that plan to make sure that you would follow through, which you didn't. So yeah.
I like that you said that. It's like, and I had similar experiences where I've helped people. Like, usually it's the big thing is people are not putting in the work that's required. Like, they're not treating it as serious as it needs to. Like, It's like you go to your day job and you don't treat your day job that serious, and then you think that when you go to do your art that you can have the same kind of like, well, I just show up and then the money comes in attitude, and it's like it just does not work. But for the
Mhm.
people who are putting in the work, often it's quite simple to just change a few things or get them to through a few roadblocks to contact some people or get their work in front of the right hands or go to the right conference, and then they're flying and you're like, wow, I told you
Absolutely.
that you were amazing. You know, like you
Yeah.
didn't believe me in the beginning, but I could see it, and I can see it, and it's really like if people put in the work, because it doesn't take that much time, but it's really the mentorship. Why do you think it's so confusing? Why are we so bad when it comes to art at like following the directions, or why do we think we can do it all on our own? Uh, it,
Um, I have a theory on that, and it's not scientific. It's just my own theory. I actually have a blog post on my website about it, and it's called blog post is called "You Won't Be Getting a Medal for This," and this is doing it all by yourself. And my theory is because I have young children, is that we grew up being told, "Great job. You tied your shoelaces by yourself. Great job. You ate your meal by yourself. Great job. You walked from school back all by yourself. You didn't need mommy's help or daddy's help or the teacher's help," right? Because, like in my house, being like autonomy is a very important value. It's a value that I teach my children. I've at a very young age was very autonomous, and it served me my whole life, and it still serves me today. I don't wait on anyone to do what it is that I want to do. I figure it out. But there's a flip side to that, and the other side is thinking that for it to be worthy, it has to be all done. You need to do it all by yourself, right? And
mm,
that I don't believe. That I don't believe. The artists need to see themselves, need to kind of raise their profile and move from technician to creators, right? And have a vision that's more like we're creating something, and it's not less worthy if I have people who are helping me in my team, making sure that what I have, the ideas that I want to create, come to life.
just trying to think through this right
Be-
now, and I definitely want to explain actually, I'll just ask you, could you please explain the difference
yeah.
between a technician and a creator? Because I know for somebody it's the first time they've ever heard these two things described this way. So what is a technician?
Well, the technician is the person who holds the pen and draws, right? So
Okay.
you're all, everybody who's listening, I'm pretty sure they're technicians, right? You're really good at drawing whatever it is that you want to draw, right? So everybody tells you, "Oh, you're an amazing artist. You're a really great technician." Okay, perfect. But if you want to be an artist, you can't just be copying whatever you see on YouTube, right? You need to start creating your own work with the tools and skills that you learned as a technician, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're starting to create your own body of work, your own ideas. So you're creating. So at first then you're the creator and the technician. But then as your business grows, you're going to maybe move a little bit away from the technique, because let's say somebody hires you to do a commission and they want you to do a piece on, a 50-foot wall. Well,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to all go do it by yourself? Or are you going to have that big idea, that big vision? You're going to do the sketches, and then you're going to hire people to help you, right? And maybe you're going to hire a photographer so they can take pictures so you can do marketing with it. And maybe at some point you're making enough money that you can have a social media partner part-time that comes in and helps you out with your social media. So now you're starting to think more as an artist entrepreneur, right? Where you have the
Right.
vision, you have the creative direction, right? And it's not just about the artistic skills, but it all starts with that, though. It all starts with that, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have the skills, you're never going to be able to grow your business and your artistic practice. But I mean, Steven Spielberg doesn't do his films all by himself, right?
Right.
Damien Hirst, right, doesn't do his installation all by himself. Ashley Longshore, if you look at her studio, there's always 8, 10 people gravitating around her, right? So that's when you start saying, okay, no, I need to grow this. And again, that's a big mindset thing, right? Accepting that is already a huge challenge for a lot of
Yeah, I
artists.
was just gonna say that I can imagine you meet with a lot of resistance when you do you challenge people, or how do you get them to push through that? Because it's sort of like, I think as artists we often have this sort of like, we want control over everything, and we're the only one who can do it the right way or the best way or whatever it is. How do you get people to push through that?
Well, I think it's I have this image, and one of the, when I do strategic planning, I have this image on one of my slides, and it's just basically a guy who's walking up the stairs, right? Uh, it's one step at a time. You're not going to go from I'm drawing in my basement to I have a team of 8 people supporting me and a studio that's costing me I don't know how much overhead. And
Yeah.
you mean that's not, I mean, I teach lean startup methods. So the idea is not to get you like a how do you say, venture capitalist to come in and inject money in your business so that you can already hire 10 people. That's not at all the way I see it. I think it's all about building momentum, building wins on top of wins, small wins, medium wins, bigger wins, and then seeing, okay, what's keeping, and at every stage of your business, you're looking for feedback on what's working, not working, and how can you build on what's working, grow your revenue, and then see what's missing to fill the gap, and it's usually resources. So
Awesome. I love the 30,000 foot view. Let's take things down a notch now. So
sure.
let's, because I feel like for the people listening to the podcast, a lot of them
Yeah.
are at that sort of first step where they
Yeah.
are working at home in their spare time. They're not full time at all. They've always enjoyed being creative. Maybe they went to school, maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
But and maybe they've never considered that they could do something more, but they definitely have the skill. I think there's
Yeah.
they're putting in the time, and if they don't have the skill yet, they're probably not that far off. Maybe even just one course in like a month of intense practice
Mm-hmm.
to make that jump. So for people in that situation, like, what are some of the first things that they could do to start down this path? They're not going to jump into the deep end and quit their job and everything.
Absolutely not. I would not recommend that.
But
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is try to get a few quick wins. Um, and just like getting a few sales out. So first you need a consistent body of work. Okay. So a lot of people come to me and they don't have it. Like, I want to sell. I'm like, okay, show me what you got to sell, have to sell. And they have nothing.
right.
It's surprising. Like they've been sketching, they've been learning skills, but they don't have a consistent body of work that they can present, show, right? So I think that's the first thing, right? You need to be at a certain level as an artist where you have something consistent that you can show that's of decent quality. The second thing is you need to work on your story. Okay, so why is it that you want to become a professional? You want to move from hobbyist to professional, and what's the story behind that body of work or behind the work that you're creating, right? If there's no story, if you can't create any emotional connection, if there's nothing out there in there, well, first, I don't believe you. There certainly is. You just need to dig a little deeper, and you need to learn how to communicate that, right? Especially because a lot of people want to sell through social media, and there's a lot of noise in social media, right? So if you want to kind of cut through the noise, you need to have a compelling message. You need to have a compelling story. And then
Okay,
I would say,
I'm
yeah,
gonna stop you just for a second. I
okay,
wanna so as soon as you said body of work, my mind just
yeah,
goes to like, okay, I'm showing in a gallery and I have to be an oil painter. I know that's not right, and that's not what you meant, but
no.
that's just where my mind went. So I wanted to just to clarify, what is it? What do you mean by a body of work?
Well, I mean at least around between 8 and 15 pieces,
Uh-huh.
okay, that are consistent. So, if you do, I don't know, pastels, portrait and pastels, then you have like 12 portraits. If you do plein air landscapes, and you have maybe 12 different landscapes to present, but you have something that you're ready to present to the public or on your social media, but that's coherent, that like people can start recognizing, oh yeah, that's, you know, Cameron's work, or that's Julie's work, right? So you need to start having, if you're presenting like one day a very colorful animal, and the next day like a pencil portrait, and like people are like, oh, I don't get it. Like if people are saying I don't get it, they're not gonna buy it. Just that's the first step.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad that you said that. It's something that I've realized too, that the people looking at your work have to be able to sort of like put you into a box as much as you don't want to be in a box. And it's like it's okay. There'll be room to you can branch out into other things later, but now it's just like that first
Exactly.
step is sort of like
Yeah.
pick something. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, stick to your lane for a while. And it doesn't mean that you can't be doodling or doing other things. And it doesn't mean that in 6 months you can't release another body of work that's maybe abstract, right? It's fine as long as, and my recommendation when people tell me, well, I like doing different things, I say, perfect, do different things, but do them in series. So do a series on
Yeah.
one thing, then a series on other thing instead of one-offs, right? So that would be, I think that's like the first step, definitely.
And so one follow-up question, because I've
Yeah.
worked with people before that it's like, even though that's the path, we know that this is the path. So many people have walked it. Um, it's like they just rebel against it, and they're like they can't follow the directions, and they just want to keep doing random things. And as somebody who's trying to coach them, it's frustrating because you're like, I'm here to help you. This is the
Mhm.
way forward. Everything that you're doing is right. It's just that you're trying to do 12 things at once, and I need you to do one. Is there something that you
Yeah.
can say to those people that breaks through, or is it just you just have to let them go? Because I feel like some people, I just have to let them. For me personally, I've just said like, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't help you if you can't choose one thing.
Yeah. I've never had that experience personally. I know, like, I've had people tell me, like, I'll never be able to do just one thing. I don't want to do just one thing. And I'm like, well, fine. Like, how's that been working for you? Been working good? Perfect. Good for you. And like I said earlier, like I don't think that you should be doing that one thing all the time.
Hmm.
But and obviously there's resistance. For me, it's one other type of resistance and self-sabotage, right? It's like usually when, you think everybody in the room is wrong and you're the only one who's right, it's a good idea to kind of look at what's going on. Like it's rare that 20 or 30 or 200 artists are wrong and you're the only one who's got it when they're selling and you're not. So I think it's
Yeah.
okay to kind of do a little bit of introspection and see what happened there. But yeah, I mean, some people just don't aren't ready to acknowledge that they're not ready to do what it is that needs to be done, and that's okay because it's not the easiest path. So you need to be committed, and sometimes you need to, just try something. And that's usually what I'll say. I'll say, look, try it. And if that really doesn't work out for you, you can go back to your old ways.
Mm.
And usually once they try it, they realize that I wasn't that wrong. Part of it was right.
And it's crazy too because like I know from my own experience that I've done things wrong for like 6 years. Like we can go our whole lives doing something wrong, and then you try it the other way, you're like, you feel kind of dumb because you're just like, oh wow, it took me that long to learn the lesson, but it's okay. I mean, now you can be the story of like helping other people out of like, look, there's an easier way. You can help other people shortcuts. They don't have to
Yeah.
take 20 years or whatever it was.
But that's exactly what I say. I mean, almost everything you can Google today, right? You can Google it, but do you have the context? Like, wouldn't you rather speak to someone who like has done this with hundreds of artists before? Like, because when you're Googling something, you don't have the context, right? So um, that's really what's, you can learn from being, and because the next step I was going to say, once you have the body of work, the message is start hanging out with new people, right? You need a new community. You're the average of the 5, 6 people you spend the most time with. If you want your business to soar and to thrive, you probably need, if you're doing everything else right and it's still not working out, look at who's around you, look at who you're surrounded with, and maybe that's where the change needs to happen.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to go back to first. I just want to say for anyone listening who's interested in the entertainment industry, because that's often a lot of what people want to do inside Pencil Kings. What the body of work is genius, and then what I usually tell people that's maybe an aside to that, because they're looking more for a job, is find a job description and go and read it, and then start working, like tailor your body of work towards that job description, because I find a lot of people are just operating in the dark, and they see some things on YouTube or Instagram, wherever, and then they get these ideas, but it's like, well, let's just bring it back into reality, or like see what people actually want.
And look at, like, if you're fan of an artist who's in the entertainment sector, like go look at their Instagram, go like read the post, look at what they're showing. Like, they're successful. There's so many things you can learn from seeing how they present themselves. Already start showing up the way they're showing up, and you're already going to be a few steps ahead.
Yeah. So next, because I feel like these three steps, if you start doing these three things, it's enough that just by changing your group that you hang around with, if you start hanging around with people who are, let's say, are going to weekend markets and selling their stuff, you'll just hear things and you'll just be exposed to all new kinds of things that will start you on that right path. But I'm also curious about the story, because I'm sure you've worked with someone who thought they don't have a story.
Yeah.
So could you give us an example? You don't have to mention names or anything, but or just an idea of like, what did it look like? So they thought, well, I don't really have a story. They have the technician skills, but how did you get them to change the way that they see themselves that might be helpful for somebody listening, where they're like, oh wait, I've got a way better story than that even. Wow, I didn't realize this,
Yeah. Well, there's an author and speaker who you might know, who's called Simon Sinek, and he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So basically, the first exercise that I recommend for somebody who doesn't know what their vision is or what their story is to start with their why. So really asking themselves, like, why do I want to do this? Like, why do I want to spend my days creating instead of going to my random day job or doing what I actually studied at university and got student loans for, and now I just want to move on to something else? Like, asking yourself why, and then why 5 more times, okay? Like when you're finished. So usually when I help clients with bios or artist statement, I just tell them, just draft whatever it is, and then they send it to me, and then I send it back to them with a bunch of whys written in the text, right? Because it's just, you need to go 5 layers deeper to get something interesting. Another way to do that is I recommend the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And in that book, she recommends to do your morning pages, right? Writing 3 pages a day of whatever comes up in your mind. And why is it 3 pages? Because usually the first 2 pages, you write what you think you should be writing. And then the 3rd page is really when there's like no BS and you're just writing whatever, like you really feel deep inside of you. And then I think it's just having the courage to start sharing snippets of that, to see how people resonate with it and what they resonate with and how you said it. And once I said it like this, another time I said it like that. And really seeing how the market or your followers react to the story, what questions they're asking, and see what parts of it that you can tweak and really start building on. You were asking, for example, I have a client who has an illness that makes it difficult for her to paint every day or as much as she would like, or show her work as much as she would like. And at some point she told me, I have nothing to say. I need to give myself that space. I need to give myself that room. I'm going to move away from social media and blogging because right now I can't really talk about painting or doing a show or things like that. And I said, you know what? no, like, and her work is all about, introspection and calmness and all these things. And I'm like, you know what? Your followers don't care about your next show or if you're in the studio at 7 a.m. in the morning. They care about you. You need to tell them what's going on, right? At a degree that you feel comfortable sharing, but you need to share it with them, because otherwise you're not in integrity, right? You're showing up one way, but how you're really feeling is something else, right? And so there's a disconnect between who you are and your persona, whatever. And she said, oh, okay, let me think about it. And after a while, she started just a little bit, share a little bit more about what was going on in her life, and not necessarily being depressing about it, but more like, I'm giving myself this space. I want you to allow yourself to give yourself that space. Or when I create because of this and that, because it gives me that freedom or whatever it is that it creates for her. And it completely changed and completely shifted her relationship with her followers, right? Because all of a sudden they felt they had someone in front of them who was actually speaking to them, and they were having a conversation. And people want to feel that they have something in common with you. So whatever you're going through, and even your challenges as an emerging artist, right? As you share them, people will be much more inclined to encourage you, help you, support you, and say, you know what, I'm in a completely different field. I'm a med student, but oh my God, I think it's hard too. I totally understand what you're going through. Let's support each other. So that's how you go from having fans to having an actual community of people who support you, who then, when you're ready to sell something, will jump in and want to buy from you, because they believe not only in the art, but in you as an emerging artist who's going to become something, because it's a no-brainer for everybody that you're going to, move on to become something great.
Awesome. I love that. And so I'm just gonna kind of go through these steps just for people listening, and then I want to hear about, you have a workshop coming up that I think a lot of people would be interested in. So if you've been making art and you're serious about it, and you're thinking about, well, what would the next step be? Step number one, body of work. And that doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like I was talking about going to an art gallery and oil painting.
No,
That's crazy. So just
no.
like, what did you say, 8 to 15 pieces?
Have 8 to 15 pieces that are high quality, that you feel like sexy work. Like you're excited about it.
Okay, step one. Step two is, I forgot step two already. Your story.
Message.
Your
Your
story.
story.
Yeah, we just talked about
Your
the story.
story.
So,
Yeah.
so figuring out the story, and if you're not sure, if you think you don't have a story, go and check out the 5 Whys from Simon Sinek. It's
Yeah.
like it's not I think it's like a 20-minute TED Talk or something, and it
Yeah.
applies to so many things in life. You can use it for, like, should we have children or not? You can go through the 5 Whys. It can help you with that. Like you can apply it to so many things.
I love
And then
it.
step three is looking at your peer group and changing them. And then one of the big insights that I had that maybe will help this message hit home is that people say, well, no one wants to buy my work. And if you go back through history and you look at who supported the artists, it was always like these patrons supported the artists. And so they were friends, and they were hanging out with these people who had a lot of money so that they could support their grand visions. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're hanging out with your friends who don't have money, it's not to say that they're bad friends or whatever. It's just saying that they're not the right people who can help support you on your journey. So you have to realize that, and then find people that can support you. And it doesn't mean that you need rich friends to start. It could just be other creators.
No.
But just look at who you're around and see what's the next step that will get you towards where you're trying to go to. So those three
Yeah.
steps are amazing, very easy to grasp, which I love. And so can you tell us a little bit about the workshop that you have coming up?
Yes, absolutely. So on March 14, I'm giving a free training, which those who follow me know I very rarely do. And it's how to grow your art business in 2019 without sacrificing your creative practice. So I'll be offering that. And at the same time, we'll be opening up doors to our lab, which is our inclusive business incubator. And we rarely do that. We only do it twice a year. So people will also get an invitation to that. But if you only join us for the workshop, I promise you, you will have a lot of value, and you will have, the start of a blueprint to get you ahead in your art business. That's for sure.
Awesome. And so I have not been inside the lab, but what I can say is that from being in other groups, this is something that I've used forever because I grew up in this tiny little village, 650 people, where I didn't have the people around me, so I had to find them online. And so if you're in that kind of situation, you don't know where to go, or you're maybe like me, an extreme introvert, and you want to stay home all the time, it is a way that you can start building that peer group around you without leaving your house. I don't think you all want to stay there forever. Eventually you will have to,
I will strongly encourage you to leave your house, but on your own terms and at your own rhythm.
Yeah, but it's a great way to start, and you can see other people
Absolutely.
who are moving ahead, become friends with those people, and have a chance where you can ask them questions. And this is, usually I come up, I talk to people and they don't want to invest in joining some of these groups, and I'll tell you, because it could be any group, but often the real value is in the students. It's like what you learn is great, but it's the other students that that's where these friendships happen, and there's just so much value that no one says, hey, join, make new friends, give me some money to make but
No.
really that's one of the biggest benefits. And so if you've ever been on the fence, it's often something that it'll just be a bullet point that we have the strong community, but it's a really important part for your journey as an artist. So I'm glad that you have
Yeah, I think people come in thinking for the training and the coaching, but then they stay because of the community. And it's essential. You're absolutely right. And I always say it, join the lab, don't join the lab, that's perfectly fine with me, but find your people, find it, whether it's with us or it's with somebody else. But don't try to do it all by yourself. You don't have to. Why? It's hard enough. Do you need to make it harder?
Yeah, exactly. So where can people go to sign up for the workshop?
Okay, so they can go on theartistentrepreneur.com. You can go on theartistentrepreneur.com/lab, or I'm going to give you the link and you can put it in the show notes.
Oh, perfect. Yep. So we'll have show notes over at pencilkings.com/show, where we've got all of our show notes, and then we'll also have it at /Catherine Orer.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Actually, could you spell it out for me? And then just
my name, my entire name. So it's Catherine, CATHERINE. My last name is Orer, ORER. It's also my Instagram handle, so you can find me there.
Okay, perfect. And lastly, I just want to also quickly talk about my book that I had released about 2 years ago. It had been sort of like a secret release, and now it is available on Amazon. So if you go and if you look up Mitch Bowler, you can find the Kindle version, and I also have a physical book. Or if you look up Digital Artist Career Blueprint, you can find that as well. And it kind of is my step-by-step of my journey on how to get into video games and entertainment industry. So thank you so much.
Wow.
Catherine?
I think I'll get that for my son.
Oh yeah, it takes you from when I was a kid all the way to getting to Hollywood, and so it's all the steps and everything.
My son asked me last week, can I do that as a work? Can that be my work? And I said, absolutely, darling. So I'm going to get him that book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate you sharing your story with the audience.
Well, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
That's it for the episode of the Pencil King Show. Thanks for hanging out. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can always grab us on iTunes if you want to listen in the car, at the gym, whatever you want. If you are listening and you want to watch and see what's happening, you can always go over to YouTube and look up Pencil Kings and you'll find us there. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of the show, and until then, stay creative.
Demands patience, skill, years of practice.
Ah, you talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.